Hello everyone, my name is Pixlriffs and welcome back to the Minecraft Survival Guide. I hope you're having a good day. Today, we're going to finally build the fishing shack, but first, you might notice that the chests around here look a little different, and if you're playing Minecraft between December 24th and 26th, a bunch of the chest textures are replaced with the textures of Christmas presents. Over here we have a red Christmas present with the single chest, and a green one with the double chest. And this only happens for a couple of days as a kind of Easter egg in Minecraft. It's actually based on the system time for your computer. I'm recording this on December 23rd, but I've changed the clock on my computer to say December 24th, just so we can see what these presents look like as they'll appear for you in Minecraft today and for the next couple of days. Anyway, our blast furnace auto smelter has been merrily cooking all of the copper that we fed to it in the last episode, and it's still going. It's been going since yesterday, but I haven't been logged into the world the entire time. Even so, we are down to a few stacks of raw copper, and as this one on the left here smelts down, I wanted to address something that I saw in the comments of the previous episode, because a lot of people were concerned that having smelted down all of this stuff and with the output of the furnace automatically being shifted into the chest here via the hopper, a lot of people were worried they were going to miss out on claiming the experience from smelting all that copper. Well, fortunately for you folks, that isn't the case, and I'm going to show you a trick to get the experience out of automatic setups like this. You see, hoppers can be locked, meaning that their behavior is basically put on pause. They won't take in any items, and if you lock them the right way, they won't output any items either. And hoppers can be locked by applying redstone power to them. The easiest way to do that is to power a block nearby, and the blast furnace happens to be the block we're going to use that for. So we're going to attach a lever to it. You can attach it to any available face of the block, and we're going to power that lever on, so you see the redstone particles emitting from the lever. Now, if we end up smelting one item in here, we'll use a couple of sticks to do that. We'll smelt a single piece of raw copper into a copper ingot, and because the hopper has been locked by the redstone power coming from that lever, we no longer need to worry about the items being automatically removed from the blast furnace. If we were to power off this lever, the hopper would resume its function and the copper ingot would leave the blast furnace, but instead, we can take the copper ingot out manually, and we not only receive the XP from smelting that copper ingot, we receive all of the XP that that blast furnace has gone through so far, and we've ended up with 28 levels. I think we gained 9 levels just in that one operation alone. We'll put the bucket of lava back in, it's going to start smelting up again, and we're going to remove the lever from the front of this furnace because, frankly, I would rather just keep everything going on through. This furnace on the right-hand side is about to burn down from the last coal block that I put into it, and I'm going to show you the other way of getting XP out of the furnaces because they will actually store XP in the blocks themselves. I'm going to remove this hopper for a second just so all of the items don't go everywhere, because we're going to break the blast furnace now, and when you do that, it's going to drop a bunch of XP onto the floor as a single clumped together orb and maybe a couple of extra smaller orbs, and as you can see, we've now gained an additional 5 levels, going up to level 33. I'm just going to reattach all of the stuff to this blast furnace though, because we still need to make sure that all of the copper is smelting, but I just wanted to let you folks know that you can gain a lot of levels very quickly that way. And with 33 levels, we can enchant 2 more of our items here, so I'm going to quickly run through the enchantment table and see what our options are. We can get Unbreaking 3 on our diamond sword, not so interested in that if we don't know what else it comes with, but Unbreaking 3 on a diamond axe is going to be super useful considering that we've been chopping a lot of wood lately. We could also get Unbreaking 3 on a shovel. The book enchantments weren't looking all that great at the last count. Unbreaking, Quick Charge, and Bane of Arthropods, which is the anti-spider enchantment. We also have a little bit of armor that we could still enchant with fire protection maybe, aqua affinity on the helmet, or Unbreaking 3 on the boots. I think we're going to start by enchanting the axe, and that will re-roll the enchantments for the rest of the equipment. We've got Unbreaking 3 and Efficiency 4, which is ideal to start off with for an axe. We might be able to get a couple of other useful enchantments on that later. Now we have Knockback 2 coming up on the sword, not so interested in that. Efficiency 4 on the shovel is going to be very nice for obtaining grass blocks and stuff later. Let's see what we get on the... Protection 4 on the chest plate. That's looking a lot more promising, and we're getting the same thing on the boots. Oh, Depth Strider 3 on the boots, actually. That's very useful to us. I think we're going to go for the boots, thinking about it. Depth Strider is a really important enchantment because it allows you to move as fast through water as you do on land. You'll notice that when you get into water, a lot of the time you get slowed down. With Depth Strider on our boots and some extra fire protection. Okay, that's not too bad, actually. That will serve us pretty well, and we can do a little bit more to upgrade the boots to unbreaking and maybe get a couple of other useful enchantments on them later. Now the enchantment table is giving us more options for our other gear, and Bane of Arthropods 4 is showing up on the sword. I think I'll wait until I get a general sharpness enchantment for the sword so I can get what I want, but at least for this episode, we have a slightly more efficient axe. It's not going to instantly mine through wood, but it's going to do a pretty good job of breaking blocks a little faster. But that's what we want it to do because we'll need to take down a bunch more trees and grab a bunch more resources for the fishing shack. The main focus of the fishing shack, though, is going to be a roof made out of copper, and so I'm going to grab a bunch of these copper ingots. We're going to turn them all into blocks of copper, and hopefully we will have enough to build the roof on the fishing shack design I have in mind. As you can see, my storage room is looking surprisingly festive. I actually quite like the green chests in amongst all of this birch wood and dark oak logs. I think those look really nice. Anyway, going back into our copper and gold chest here, we have a bunch of blocks of copper made up already. We're going to turn the rest of these ingots into blocks of copper here in our crafting table. And when it comes to turning these into cut copper, we want to use the stone cutter because 1 block of copper will give us 4 blocks of cut copper using the stone cutter, whereas in a crafting interface, you need to put 4 blocks of copper in to get 4 blocks of cut copper out. So the stone cutter makes this a much more worthwhile block to use. We're going to bring the stone cutter with us to the site of our fishing shack build, and I'll tell you a little bit more about copper blocks in the process, because we don't actually want these copper blocks to be the orange color they are now. Copper is a fairly unique material in Minecraft in that it can actually age, and the appearance of the copper blocks will change over time. Right now they are this wonderful shiny orangey peachy kind of color, and over time they will corrode. Whether it's a block of cut copper like this one or it's a regular block of copper like that, including stairs and slabs that we can make out of the cut copper version, they will age over 4 stages, starting with this nice shiny one, moving on to exposed copper, weathered copper, and finally oxidized copper. And if you're a builder, this can be an interesting property of copper because you get to decide whether you want to build the entire roof out of this shiny material, if you want the entire thing to look like copper, and we can build our entire roof out of this material and simply let it age over time, meaning that the building kind of ends up with its own sort of history, where we can see it first of all as a beautiful shiny copper roof, and then over time it starts to age and the building looks older and older as a result. But if you already want your roof to be a specific color of copper, if you're planning a build and you think, I don't want a bright orange roof, I want a roof that already looks kind of weathered and broken down, then you have the option of leaving this copper out to age. There we go, right before our eyes, this block of cut copper just aged 1 stage, and it is now, if we pick it up with a pickaxe, a separate block in our inventory called exposed cut copper. So you can work with the different ages of copper as different building blocks if you want to, and if you want this slightly more shabby looking copper to be part of a design, say you're working on a building that looks a little bit more run down or like it's, been around for a while, you can pre-age your copper simply by placing it down in the world and waiting for it to age. However, copper is kind of smart in the way that it ages, and if you place a bunch of blocks really close together like this, they sort of help each other out staying young and youthful. Basically, the idea is that a bunch of copper placed down in an area ages all together, and so it retains its appearance for a little bit longer. Each block of copper detects whether there is another block of copper within 4 blocks radius of it in every direction. That's horizontally and vertically. And if it detects a block of copper in that range around it, it will not age as fast. As long as one of the copper blocks is in one of these earlier stages, then they will cling to that stage for a little bit longer. And so if you want your copper to be pre-aged, you need to make sure that there aren't any other blocks of copper within a 4-block radius around it. So we need to count out 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks, and on our 5th block, we're going to place this piece of copper there, and we'll do the same over here. We'll count 4 blocks out and place another one, and 4 blocks this way, and place another one, 4 blocks horizontally that way, and this way, and another one over here, and that's basically how we're going to have to age these blocks of copper if we want them all to be the color that I want to work with, which is actually the fully oxidized version of copper. by the time we end up building with them. See, when I was imagining this fishing shack and I wanted to draft up a creative version of this, I decided to build it with an oxidized copper roof. I decided that the blue copper looked the best for the fishing shack look, and maybe a couple of blocks of weathered copper in there, but mostly I wanted the oxidized copper. And the problem with that is it takes a while for copper to age like this, and you have to spread it out over a really wide area. So I think what we're actually going to do for now, although we'll probably look into other things we can do with this later in the series, is to take up all of this copper that we've got spread out and just make the roof out of these regular copper blocks for now. This is sort of the intended way of working with copper, is to build a roof out of copper and then watch it age over time so that your build ends up having a bit of a history. This is how Mojang at least presented copper when it was first introduced to the game in Minecraft 1.17. In the meantime, there are a bunch of other materials I wanted to gather before we end up building our fishing shack. I need a bunch more spruce wood because I think spruce is going to be a really nice material to work into this build alongside the other wood types we've got hold of so far. And I'm going to take this out to our little island here so that I can demonstrate one of the things that's unique about spruce trees. We can always replant these birch trees later if we want them back, but in the meantime, we're going to place a 2x2 of spruce saplings. We can grow spruce saplings as individual trees, and they'll grow much like we saw them in the taiga biome that we got the saplings from yesterday. But in the meantime, we can grow these in a 2x2. And you might be thinking, that's the same as jungle trees, that's the same as dark oak trees, that's not a unique property of the spruce trees at all. But that's not what we're talking about, because if we right-click on this with a bit of bone meal and we grow it to its full height, it also generates a carpet of podzol underneath it. Podzol is a different type of grass block, basically. It's a grass block variant. Doesn't grow grass on it like the regular stuff does when you bone meal it, but it can be used to grow things like mushrooms on. You can still till it like farmland. You can still right-click on it to turn it into a dirt path, which is something we haven't actually covered in this series before. We can right-click things with a shovel to turn them into this kind of path block, which is actually really nice if you want to use it for forest paths and stuff like that. But podzol will generate around the base of 2x2 spruce trees, which, as you can see, are pretty hefty. They've got a lot of wood in them, and we're going to take all of this down. Now we have an efficiency axe. This is going to be nice and quick. But even though this is an effective way of gathering a lot of spruce wood all in one go, we got more than a stack out of that. We almost got a stack and a half out of that tree. It's important to remember that it's going to spread podzol all over the place, and this might not be a desirable block. It will replace grass, it will replace dirt. Another important thing to remember, though, is that podzol is not like grass. It won't directly spread to any dirt blocks in the neighboring area, and so if you want to convert all of your podzol back into grass, you can always just take it all up, put the dirt back down where it was, and the grass will start to spread over this area. I also think dressing up the environment around our fishing shack is going to be quite important, and so I brought back a little bit of tuff from when we went mining, and I think we're going to use that and some cobblestone and some mossy cobble and a few other bits and pieces to make the area around the base of the fishing shack look a little bit more like kind of barnacled rocks and the kind of stuff that a fishing shack might have around it. Today's game for the comments is to count the amount of times I say fishing shack in this episode. So we're going to need a bit more moss if we want to make some more mossy cobblestone. We can also craft that out of vines and cobblestone together, but I think the moss is just going to be easier to acquire right now. And now that's taken care of, let's get started on this build. One of the first things I want to do is make sure that this build is up on stilts a little way. I want the idea that it's above the river line a little bit, so we're not just opening our door out onto the water. And so if this area were to flood a little bit, the fisherman wouldn't be in danger of getting his entire house completely drenched. So we're going to start a couple of little spruce legs over here. We're going to actually strip these using the axe so that it has this slightly more weathered look to it. And right here is actually where we're going to put the doors. So we're going to have a couple of pillars either side like that. We're going to continue it up as a spruce wood frame. We'll hop down here, make a door out of the spruce planks so it looks like an old kind of rustic door. The spruce doors really have this fantastic medieval kind of vibe to them, but in this case, we want to make sure that the fisherman has his privacy. So we're going to put that one in there so that it's inset into the frame at the front, like so. And leading up to that, we're going to have a deck of oak and birch slabs so that we're actually stepping up into the house, and the rest of this kind of walkway up here is suspended. We're mixing in a little bit of the birch as though this front porch is maybe a little sun-bleached. You could also mix in some spruce slabs to show it being aged a little bit. Mixing up the textures of wood types is often a really good idea. I want to have a canopy coming down above this door, so we're going to have that supported on either side by a couple of these oak wood logs. We're going to strip those as well. And you know what? I think those actually might come all the way down into the water on either side. And you know what? Maybe having a spruce log in the bottom of here might be a good idea, as though it kind of changes and gets a little bit more damp below the waterline. I like to make sure the logs look like they're going all the way into the ground. So there we go. We've got a little bit of damp around there, and we're going to dress this up a little bit more with other materials just to make sure that join doesn't look too artificial. Beyond this pillar, we're going to have the deck come out one more slab in this direction, and from there on down, we're going to have a series of slabs coming out here as steps down to the water, and we can create a little boat dock down here. I'll leave my little birch boat down here for now, and every time we want to go rowing, we can always start from the fishing shack. We're going to extend this outwards by another block or two. Let's bring a couple more birch slabs in there, and we're going to have some spruce fences go around the outside of this one. I think what we might actually do is turn some of this mossy cobblestone into walls as well. Walls are basically the stone equivalent of fences. They're a little bit thicker, a little bit sturdier, and really good for dressing up a build like this. We could have this wall coming out of the water like so. We don't even have to make it moss all the way up. We could have a regular cobblestone wall on the top there, but that can kind of go to support some of the fences that we're going to put around the front of the porch here. We'll do the same on this side as well, and to make sure this looks a little bit more connected, we're going to vary up the texture of the underside of this by maybe doubling up on a couple of these slabs. I put this slab over here next to this pillar because we're actually going to have this turn into a kind of raised walkway around the side of the house, which is going to act as a platform where the fisherman can store a couple of barrels and things like that, once again safely above the waterline of the river. We're going to add a couple more oak planks on either side of the door frame, and here's where I need to go and chop down some more oak wood because I didn't bring a whole lot with me. We're going to turn some of our spruce wood into fences so that we can decorate the front porch here, and here's a tip that I didn't show you when we were going through the controls in that previous video, but one that I think is actually really worthwhile. If you want to use your recipe book to make a specific wood type, but you've got multiple wood types in your inventory and the recipe book is scrolling through oak stairs, spruce stairs, the same with fences over here, where it says right click for more, if you right click, this opens up the two different wood options in a smaller menu, and if we shift click on that, it will make as many spruce fences. If we shift click on that one, it will make as many oak fences as we have materials available to us in our inventory. So that way you can control a little bit more of what you're making here in the recipe book without having to shift click on the right recipe as it comes up and time it with the recipe book cycling through those. You don't need to worry about that. You can just right click on it to get the expanded version of what you want. On top of these fences at the front of the house, we're going to make this angled canopy roof, and we're going to use slabs for this, where we could be using blocks and slabs, but honestly, it's just easier to break them all down into slabs, and it doesn't waste any materials because each slab can still take up the space of 2 blocks, and you need 3 blocks to make 6 slabs. So mathematically, it works out pretty much the same. So we're going to come up 3 slabs each time and up 1 block every couple of blocks we move along. And if that was too confusing, then just take a look at this. It comes up 3 slabs for each section, and it goes up half a block every 2 blocks, just so it's kind of this shallow angle like that. We're going to connect that to the house with another sort of more rounded section behind it, and along the top here is actually where we're going to start our copper roof, but we're not going to get to that yet because down here I want to grab a couple more dark oak logs. I'll need to grab those from my storage room. We're going to build a section on this side that's going to be identical on this side over here as well, so kind of think of this as like a modular section of the build, something that we could just repeat as an easy pattern. We're going to come up all the way to the line of the roof with some dark oak logs. We're going to strip all of those dark logs all the way down to the ground. We're going to do the same on this section here next to it so that we leave a 1 block gap between the two. We're going to grab some spruce planks and turn them into stairs. We're going to grab some of the trap doors that we made earlier, and we're going to put a plank there, a stair there, a trapdoor like that so that it closes up and forms the inside of that, and then another stair on top of that, and that can look like a little modular window section from the outside. We could even take the trapdoor out and attach it to that top block there so that we can open and close it, and it looks like a window that we can look out of from the inside. As I mentioned, we're going to build something identical on this side of the house as well, and let's see if I can jump to that one. Yep, there we go. We'll bring that all the way up to the edge of the roof line as well, and we'll do the same thing with the stairs and the trapdoor. And maybe our little walkway of oak and birch slabs can come around the outside of the house, and we can put a little window box there or something like that. So far, our house looks like this right now, and I think that's looking quite nice. I think we might actually bring the staircase out 1 more block so we have a bit more room to decorate the outside of the house here, because right now that's only a 1 block thin walkway. It's not looking too spacious, and I feel like we could probably wrap this staircase around the front here a little bit more so that we can bring this out one more block. And we'll remove the stairs under here, and down here is where I want to start dressing up the build with a little bit of decorative stone, some of the tuff and the mossy cobblestone and stuff that we picked up as we've been exploring caves. We can make a few slabs out of these as well using the stone cutter, and we can grab a bunch of those. We can build up around the tuff with those like that, and I like the idea of this appearing kind of in between and around the legs here, as though some of this stuff has just kind of washed up against this part of the house over time. Maybe even a mossy stair block to go in between the legs over here, like so. Yeah, I like that. It kind of gives a little bit of depth to it. We'll have these blocks trail down into the water a little bit as well, and we'll probably break out some of the clay blocks from underneath the foundation here so that we can replace those with the tuff and the cobblestone that we brought with us. Add a bit of texture to the underside of the build here. Because over here from the shoreline, that little bit of terraforming really starts to blend it in a little bit more. And I think if we add some moss or vines or glow lichen or something like that to this, I think that will be a really nice effect. Anyway, our facade is coming together quite nicely, but now it really needs to start getting a roof on it. So I'm going to split some of this into cut copper, and we're going to start laying out the line of the roof. We're going to break all of that down, and then we're going to break it down further into a bunch of stairs, because we're going to be using stairs to angle the roof a little bit. We're probably also going to want some slabs, so I'll make a bunch of those. We'll need a few of the full blocks, but let's see how we get on right now. Coming up to the top of the house here, we're going to run a row of copper blocks along the front. We're going to stop above the window. We're going to place a stair block there, and we're going to finish off with a full block on that side. And we're going to do the same over here, stopping above here, placing an inverted stair, and then putting another block on the end there. We're going to cap this off with a different type of material, probably some more oak wood, to kind of complete a roof line. So it's nice and shiny right now, but from the front it's going to look like this. Now back on top of the roof, we're kind of going to invert the pattern that we just made. So we're going to put some stairs there. We're going to make a full block next to that, and the rest of this is all going to be stairs until we reach the 3 blocks directly above the door. And on top of that, I actually want to create a kind of opening, almost like there's a window into the house up here, or a section of the roof has kind of broken out a little bit. And then we're going to continue along the outside there with some stairs, a full block above the window, and some more stairs right there. On the next row above that, we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to have some stairs there, a full block there, a couple of rows of stairs along here until we get to our gap, and then we're going to leave 1 block like so, an inverted stair, another block on that side, and then we're going to continue with the stair block and then stair pan. Switching back to full blocks, we're going to fill in the row behind that, and then we're going to layer on some slabs along the top here. But once we reach this section with the broken out bit, we're going to stop, because up here we're actually going to start laying in a little pop-up section of the roof in the center. This is going to come up a block or two using stripped oak wood like so, and we're probably actually going to put one of our spruce trapdoors on the front of this like so, and that's going to create an opening where we can put in a window. I want this to be angled a little bit that way, kind of like the angle of our front porch, so it's going to create this sort of similar shape in the structure. And so we're going to put a copper slab roof on top of this in a second, once we've outlined the rest of it. And once again, at this point, I think we might need to go and get a bit more oak wood, because I am running a little bit low. I'm going to grab a little bit more jungle wood for this next thing, because each of the different wood types has a different trapdoor design, and the jungle wood trapdoor has a kind of circular— that's a really bad block to demonstrate this against. The jungle wood trapdoor has a very circular kind of window design in it, which makes it look a little bit more like a porthole than any of the other trapdoors, and I think it'll be perfect for a little window section in the top of our house here. We're going to put 1 window on the outside there and 1 on the outside there. I think we might actually just block that one up using logs, and then we'll have another window there on this side. And you might be thinking, well, nobody's going to use these windows. This is a 1x1 space. It's not even a bedroom size thing. You can't even fit a bed in here, and that's kind of not the point, because windows aren't always just about providing a space to look out of. They're also about providing light. So I figure it's probably going to work out to have a little bit of light filtering down from the top of the building here in the aesthetics of the build itself. Anyway, going back to our cut copper slabs, we're actually going to have these coming out over the edge of the roof line like so, and forming a diagonal line upwards once again. And we'll continue to build the rest of the roof in the same fashion, with 3 slabs raised up in the middle and then double slabs on the sides. That's looking really nice. Now imagine it if all of the copper was fully oxidized, so it was all that beautiful rich blue color. Now to cap off each end of the roof, we're going to have this 2 block section of stripped logs, and we're going to have to replace that one with a vertical one. There we go, just to make sure it's in the right orientation. And from here, we're going to have a section of oak stairs that comes out like so and like so. And pillaring back up to the top here, we're basically going to follow the line of the roof here, but one block up. Once we get to this point, we're going to start using oak slabs instead of stairs, and the central ridge of the roof is going to be made out of cut copper slabs once again, and now you can see why I needed so much copper for this build. We're going to mirror this exactly the same on the opposite side of the house, and now the whole thing looks like this, which I think, and hopefully you agree, looks pretty cool. There's a couple of areas we still need to fill in, like this section over the door probably needs a bit more of a spruce wood frame, like so, and I think we actually want to start trying to hide some of the roof elements down here, so maybe we'll put stairs or planks on either side like that. I think I want to have a barrel on this side like so. I think I might move this crafting table, but I'm going to make a composter to put over here, because this also looks like a more permanently open barrel, and we'll go into the functionality of the composter another time, because they're really useful blocks, but for right now, we're focusing on the house build, and it doesn't have a back or an interior or anything yet. But the good news about that is that we can basically mirror what we've done on the front of the house on the back as well, except instead of a porch section, we're going to have another section coming out from the back of the house that's just going to stretch out the space a little bit, considering that if we want to mirror this and the center of the roof is there, the whole house is only about 3 blocks wide. But now we've built the front of that, it's pretty easy to just straight up mirror it on the back. And so for this back part, we've doubled up on the pillars that make up the front of the house and support the roof. These oak pillars with the 2 oak planks on the top. We're just going to trail the copper blocks out towards these, and we'll figure out what shape they make in just a second. But first of all, I want to finish connecting this part of the roof to that part. Okay, we've now got all of the sides connected up. We just need to do something about this new extended section that I've added to the back here. I think we're going to have the stairs come in one more block here. We're going to put a full block on the corner, so it kind of rotates around that. We'll put a full block in the center of our new wall here, and then we'll continue that to a stair block along the end. And let's see if we do that on the opposite side, and then maybe we bring these 2 in as full blocks as well and kind of copy that around the outside. That's not going to look too bad if we end up with 2 stairs on either side of that central block there. And then we'll do a ridge of doubled up cut copper slabs in the center there, and we can finish that off with an oak arch the same way we've done on the ends here. That's not looking too bad. The main problem I have now is that these sections here are a little bit tricky to make look more detailed, because what we've got right here is a wall that is also in line with the roof above it. And the same is true of this wall on the opposite side. They basically mirror each other. So to make these walls look a little bit more interesting, we're going to use wall blocks in the same way that we used the mossy cobblestone walls earlier. We're going to grab some andesite blocks from this chest, and we'll substitute those for the smooth stone, because I'm not really using those for anything. Let's go back to our stone cutter, and if we turn a bunch of these andesite blocks into walls, we'll have a building block that we can use to connect up these 2 pillars, basically halfway into the blocks. So from both sides, this is going to look like a flat wall. And that gives a little bit more depth to the build. It's looking a little plain right now, but we can absolutely do a little bit more to detail this. First of all, we can create a window space up here, which changes the shape of the walls around it, but we can add in a glass pane or something like that to connect these 2 walls together. And already this house is feeling like quite a nice place to shelter from the rain, actually. It's worth noting that different combinations of material in the wall can quite happily coexist, so we can replace some of these blocks with mossy cobblestone walls, and they'll still fit together quite nicely. We might even pepper in a little bit of regular cobblestone to make the mossy stuff look a little more at home. One thing to note about these walls is that they will change shape to connect to any solid blocks inside of here, but since this house is going to be up on stilts, the floor in here is going to be all made up of slabs, and so for the most part, the walls here aren't going to connect to those because the slabs aren't going to be full blocks. We are going to create another entrance at the back of the house here using spruce logs, but we'll dress this up a little bit and it'll look quite nice. Even though this back wall is flat, just adding a little bit of a deck back here, maybe a log to help support it, and it's looking a little bit more 3D and dynamic, even though that section of the wall here is going to look a little strange. And of course, a little bit of greenery around the back here is going to help this feel much more natural, especially around these areas where the cobblestone turns to mossy cobblestone, and even though the leaves look like solid blocks, they're transparent and they're not entirely counted as full blocks, which means that things like walls and glass panes and whatnot won't connect to them. So despite having limited space inside, this is already looking really nice and homey. I went back and forth about what to do with this back entrance, but I've just turned the top part there into a nice little rounded off section with some spruce trapdoors splitting it down the center, a couple of slabs and some trapdoors underneath there to round that out. I think that looks really nice, and if I look around to the side of the building here, finally, this copper roof is starting to age a little bit. I'm going to pillar up here to show you what's happened so far. We've only got a few blocks. The slab, the stair, and a couple of the solid blocks here have started to get that exposed copper look to them. And that's going to spread to the other blocks in time, but it is going to take a while for this entire roof to be completely taken over by that verdigris kind of bluish green color that I really want. So I'm in it for the long haul at this point, but we've just got to come up with something to tidy up the end sections of the house here, and I think we're ready to call it a day. Okay, so I think we are more or less coming to a close on this build, or at least on the amount of this build I want to do right now. I do just want to add a couple more details around the outside here to see if they make a bit of a difference. First of all, I think we're going to grow a little bit of sugarcane along the banks here just to add a bit more greenery to the outside, and maybe we can sneak in a water source down here so that we can have some sugarcane growing slightly inland. I kind of like the idea of putting one in there, and then bam, there we go. With the water source hidden under that block, we can still grow some of this sugarcane around here. I like that. I think that adds a little bit more detail. Secondly, I did bring some glass panes in so we could add those to the windows, and that closes up the walls around here quite nicely. I haven't done much work on the interior yet. I'm probably going to do that here and there between episodes. There's still a couple of blocks lying around, and I put a trapdoor in the floor so that we can access the storage for all of the stuff I've been using to build with this and just haven't had a chance to put away yet, because I think we're going to do a little bit more work on the interior here and there. On the outside, you'll notice I put a couple of moss blocks up there in the roof, and in my test builds, I found that moss blocks were actually going to fit really well once the roof starts to oxidize. So for now, there is a huge contrast between the orange and the green, but over time, that will start to blend in a little bit more, and we can help it do that by adding some vines around the outside on some of the solid blocks. I think in particular on here and on here, I would like a couple of vines growing down, and they will start to grow down a bit more naturally. You'll notice that the vine color is a little bit more akin to the grass color that we have around here compared to how vibrant it was in the jungle. But maybe if we just tuck a vine or two in here, they'll start to grow naturally. In fact, they might end up growing a little bit out of control, so we might come back with some shears later on and use this as a little temporary vine farm, or at the very least make sure they don't grow too far out of where we want them to. And last but not least, I need to do a quick caving run so I can find myself some glow lichen. Here we go. I actually spotted a little bit of it back in the cave where we first found our iron, and with a set of shears we can shear the glow lichen off the walls. I don't know if there'll be any more of it around here, but we can always multiply it using a little bit more bone meal. Yeah, there's a touch more on the walls of the cave here. You'll notice that it kind of wraps around to the blocks above it if it reaches the ceiling. I think we've only got a couple of pieces of it in here, but that's really all that we need. Glow lichen is really one of the things that's going to take this build to the next level a little bit. We can add it to the sides of blocks here, and while it might stand out a little bit right now, I think it'll look perfect added onto the side of some of the tuff around here, and maybe creeping up the sides of blocks in the walls. And next to the seaside, it could look a little bit like a kind of salt crust on the outside of the house where spray has hit the side of the house and has stuck to it, or barnacles on the rocks or something like that. I think that will actually look pretty good, and it's very high contrast here on the dark oak, so maybe we'll move it to there. The other cool thing about glow lichen is, as the name suggests, it emits light. It can emit light level 7, which will block mob spawns in a 7-block radius around it. And we can even add, I think, a lantern over the top of the door will suit it quite nicely. Lanterns are a really nice addition to the game, which you can obtain simply by breaking down some iron ingots into iron nuggets and using those in a crafting table surrounding a torch. You'll just need 8 iron nuggets for that, so you'll always have a few left over. We can grab a couple of lanterns and we can use them to decorate our house. In fact, I might hang a couple up in here when I have the opportunity. Here we go. The porch light can go here right next to the door, and it's automatically got a bit of chain on there, which is really quite lovely. And I think on the inside, maybe we'll hang it from here for now so that you can see it from the outside. We'll get rid of that torch there, and we can always hang one on this side if we wanted to. Maybe we'll put it on the table here though, so it gives a bit of a glow coming out of the side of this window here. The ends of the house look like this on the sides, which I think ended up looking quite lovely as kind of like a rounding off of it, similar to what we've done on the back here. And well, like I said, we do need to get a couple of things fixed up in the interior and figure out what we're doing with the tops of the walls around here. I think from the outside this build looks pretty nice, and it'll look even nicer once the roof starts to oxidize fully and we get that lovely blue-green effect. But folks, that is going to be it for this episode of the Minecraft Survival Guide. I do hope you've enjoyed this episode and hopefully you have fun building stuff with copper yourself. Don't forget to leave a like on this episode for me if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you soon. Take care, bye for now.